Hey guys, welcome to the Kashif Boothe podcast. If you're new here, each week I sit down with a guest and we discuss their career so far, the highs, the lows, and what's next for them. Today's guest is Marlea Edwards. I've known Marlea for about 18 months, I think, and we are working on a couple of projects together. I can't even say it, I always get it tongue-tied. Nimison, the sci-fi film, and she's also directing my upcoming web series, Newlywed. So welcome to the show, Marlea.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So when I started this podcast for this new season, you were one of the first people I thought of to have on the show because we've had such great conversations about the industry and how how corrupt it is at times, but also because you've been in this game for like 20 years, so I'm sure you can share a lot of knowledge and wisdom to upcoming female directors and writers or just people in general. So yeah. So how did you get started? How did you get into the industry?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I think I've always worked in the creative arts in some capacity, really. So even from when I was really small, I started off tap dancing when I was 5, which apparently, according to my parents, I was very bad at. um, but I think I was just incredibly shy. And I was also taken to the theatre a lot as a child. So my parents were very much into representations of Black people in art and Black culture. And so by the age of 7, I was doing a lot of theatre work with local arts communities in West London. So I grew up around Notting Hill. So in the Tricycle Theatre, which I think is called the Clin now in Kilburn, and WAC Arts in Belsize Park, and Black cultural centres like Yard Santua and the Tabernacle. So I was always doing sort of arts things, writing, performing, co-directing. I did a play called Racism when I was like about 9, where I wrote it with I got my cousins to star in it, and my dad filmed it on the camcorder and stuff. So um, yeah, I always kind of had that. And then I went on to study and get a degree in performing arts, and used that performing arts degree. Actually, in my last year, I started to volunteer with the local youth offending team. And so got into, when I moved back to London, into kind of arts healing work and working with disadvantaged youths and young offenders. And then I suppose on from that, I would carried on that work and even went to live abroad. And when I came back, I pretty much just started temping in media and started at Disney, and then went for an interview at BBC and ended up staying at BBC for years. And so I really kind of got a lot of my professional chops at the BBC, and really having to scrap and fight for jobs and position. But yeah, that's pretty much my creative history. I've never had a kind of proper job.
Okay. And you're when you describe your career now, would you say you're predominantly just a director, or is it because you work in so many different fields across, like you do fashion-based jobs and in terms of commercials, TV and film. So what would you kind of narrow your career into at this moment?
Yeah, for me, I always found it strange how we were so divisive and had to cut up art and creativity in that way. I feel like I've always worked in a multidisciplinary way. So even when I worked in theatre, I was really into this company called DV8, who do a lot of dance, contemporary dance. But they also used to, in the mid 90s, late 90s, they used to started working with tech and like AV. And they do this dance where it's a lot of live performance art. And then they jump behind a screen and suddenly they'd appear on the screen still continuing to perform. And I really liked that juxtaposition. So for me, I never really, I write down writer, director, producer, but I don't really see a separation. I feel like separation is for other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really difficult for me, I feel, to kind of pigeonhole myself in that sense, because creativity doesn't work like that. It doesn't work as linear, but business does. So I understand why it happens.
No, I understand that because sometimes there are people who are multi-hyphenate people and they can flourish with each multiple roles. And, you know, it's even sometimes it can be good and sometimes it can be bad. You're one of the good ones, and I can say that confidently. So yes, I think it's good. But I think within this industry, sometimes they are trying to put you in the box because,
Yeah.
like, for me, for example, I've worked in factual, I've worked in scripted, now I'm working in broadcast operations. So when I'm applying for new jobs or people look at my CV, they're always a bit confused because I've done all different stuff and they're like, well, what do you want to do? But it's like, it's not as easy as they make it out to be. Like at the end of the day, sometimes I needed just a job. So
Right, right, exactly. It's like skills. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. They definitely, I do think it's good to work together. You don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to be a jack of all trades at all times, you know. But I just remember when I was working, it must be about 10 years ago now, on 8 out of 10 Cats. And I was working on the production side more than editorial. And they wanted me to stay, but I didn't really want to continue to move up on the production side. I wanted to be more like an AP or researcher.
Mhm.
And they really weren't open to it. So they brought me into a room. They were like, we really want you to stay, but like, what do you want to do? And at the time, I didn't really have a title for it. I'd kind of looked out and I'd seen that there was like associate producers where you were able to like produce your own work and be creative about it. And I kind of mentioned that to them, and they just said, "Oh, that's just a tax title. Like that's what people put down for tax reasons." And it really just didn't leave me much space to kind of stay in that position. So it really can play on your psyche as well, because you know social media wasn't such a big thing. YouTube and people creating and putting stuff out that way wasn't such a big thing at the time. So it really can stifle your creativity when there is no room for you to be able to express yourself. But like you as well, sometimes I just have to tailor my CV for that particular job because really I just wouldn't be paid.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
paid
I,
enough.
No, I totally understand because that sometimes I'm happy that I've worked across different parts of this industry because I understand how it works, you know. And sometimes I feel like there's this pressure for you to know what you want to do immediately and work up to that. But sometimes it changes. I didn't think I'd do independent film. I always felt like, yeah, I'm just going to work my way up in the mainstream industry, but that's not for everyone. You know, it's about finding what works for you. So I totally understand that. And what steps would you say you took to get to where you are now? Because I know you've worked for, like you said, 8 out of 10 Cats. I know you worked at Vice. You've done campaigns for, what was it, Marc Jacob as well? Like you've worked with so many people. So like, how did you get to where you are now?
Well, yeah, I think it kind of tags on to your last point. It's sometimes out of necessity, and I think we always think our path is going to be straight and linear, and it really isn't. It has
Mhm.
highs and lows, it's peaks and valleys. It you know, just stuck us in the middle for a while, you know,
Mhm.
consolidates, and it moves on. And so for me, I think it was really when I was at the BBC, I knew straight away when I was around people that even if people had been there for years, with my background in arts, I knew way more than they did.
Mhm.
And being around that was quite frustrating. And I have a dance background, A-level and performing arts and stuff. And so I kind of was a massive, and still am, I must admit, Strictly Come Dancing fan. And I remember being in, moving from BBC Worldwide into a production department called Repeats and Reversioning, which is as exciting as it sounds. And I am old enough that we actually worked off tape. We were doing a lot of that. And I noticed that we had a new kind of what they called multi-platform team. They had like a BBC YouTube and BBC kind of like what we call pages, so their entertainment pages and stuff. And I went to the producer and I said to him, I really love Strictly. Can I work with you guys? I can't, they were editing a lot of the stuff live on air and then reversioning some of the Strictly Come Dancing performances. And I went to him and I was like, I can't actually edit. I don't know what you want me to do. I can make you guys cups of tea and I'm really terrible at making tea. And he actually said, I will never forget him, Oran, he actually said, F that, I'll just teach you how to edit. He was like, okay. So he was like, come with me. We went into one of the edit suites and he said, every command that I'm telling you to do in a shortcut, write it down on this piece of paper. And so I sat with him for an hour. I watched him as he did it. I wrote down everything that he did. And then after work, I stayed for like an hour or two every night for about a week. And I used whatever stuff we had in repeats and reversioning, and I cut it. And I edited it, and I practiced editing skills. And by the Saturday night, I was up. That was it. I was editing Strictly Come Dancing live on air, sending it off to a commissioner, and putting it up on our BBC YouTube, and it went out on the television for their repeat when they watched it again. So that gave me a bit more of a buzz, and then I still had to kind of fight a lot to kind of, the good thing about when you're in the BBC, you have an access to everybody's email address and you have access to knowing what everybody does. So that means you can email people and ask them for a coffee and a chat. And so I started to take advantage of that, and you could actually do almost like a job swap, if you like. You could actually go up to a different department and work on different shows. So I started talking to my managers about me working in entertainment. They were like, no, 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 no. I pressured them probably like every day. I won't lie. I pressured them every day. Not my proudest moment, but I said I was going to lock myself in the tape cupboard and go on hunger strike. My manager there was like, really, Marley? Okay, fine. Like, we really got this far. I had to get out of that department. I just couldn't. I really knew I wanted to get more my chops into entertainment. And so I did. I ended up working in entertainment, and I ended up being able to produce and direct a lot of, you know, when Strictly Come Dancing, and so you think you can dance, they're just doing the rehearsals. The rehearsal rooms were on BBC Worldwide next door, so we would just actually be me and another young woman called Gemma, who I'm still friends with today. We would just be producing and shooting and directing this content because BBC didn't think multi-platform was going to go anywhere. Yeah, so we ended up just getting all this content, and then I ended up getting a job on Top Gear, and then I'd been at the BBC for about 4.5, 5 years. I worked on a creative diversity recruitment scheme to get more diverse people into the BBC, which we won a Creative Diversity Network award for, that I was really proud of. And then I left. I went like really kind of freelance, went into Endemol, started working on a Lee Mack pilot show in comedy. as a production coordinator. Then I ended up moving downstairs four flights to 8 out of 10 Cats. And then from 8 out of 10 Cats, I went to open mic productions in Soho, staying in comedy, and I worked on Stand Up for the Week and helped out on Alan Carr, Chatty Man. We were all in the same small office. And then from there, I ended up working on London 2012 Olympics basketball games. And I really got my love for live back. It really kind of reminded me of the theatre. It was insanity, as you can only imagine, the Olympics and Paralympics are. And we were very hungry. It was like the Hunger Games. Like all the women were so happy because we like lost about 2 stone. Like, but all the men were starving. But it was a really, really kind of great experience. And it was actually my first time in my career that I worked on a team that was like half of it was Black.
Wow.
And I had never experienced that before in terms of my professional media career outside of like more theatre and arts. And I'm friends to pretty much, which I think I'm friends with everyone to this day because I was just so excited. I walked in and I was like, "You're Black." And I kind of hit them and they were like, "Okay." I was like, "We're so friends now. Like, this is it for life." Yeah, so after that, I ended up working on a lot more live stuff. So I ended up producing and directing a lot of the live content that wasn't the main stage for Yahoo at Wireless 2013. So that was a really amazing year. I got to like film and interview Jay Z and Justin Timberlake were headlining, and Snoop was there, and Rihanna was there, and Frank Ocean and 2 Chainz, and you name it, everyone was there. So that was really great. And I guess I'm skipping a bit, but I kind of went all over the place. Like before that, I even ended up getting my first fashion show actually after I left the BBC. I ended up working for a company that had come from the States, and a friend of mine who'd worked at the BBC met this guy abroad, said that he was coming to London and he was looking for somebody to help on a beauty event. And so I helped them out on the beauty event for a few days. And then they came back to London a few months later and said, did I want to work with them on a fashion show? And I'd enjoyed working with them so much. I felt like the first time I worked with Americans, like it's so weird. Like they really care more about the color green, it feels, than the color of your skin.
There's a different energy and vibe to how Americans move. Like they're just about making the dream work. That's what I've noticed about them.
Right. So it really gave me a confidence boost because they were like, "Oh my God, you're amazing. Like you can literally do anything." And I was like, "What?" Like usually everyone's like, "No, you're not ready. No, you can't do this." So it was really refreshing. So the minute that they said they were coming over for a fashion show, I just said yes. I didn't even ask what fashion show it was. So I didn't even ask. I was so excited. I didn't care. And then I got the call sheet and it was Tom Ford. And I was like, what? I'm working on the Tom Ford show. And that relationship has lasted even up to last January. I was working with Tom Ford on a show in London. So yeah, that my career has kind of gone all over the place. I went into live music, live fashion, and then from the back of live fashion, I started working in more the campaign branded content, filming branded content, understanding audiences, and to today, writing my own stuff, working in independent film with you. I never, like you, I never ever thought I would work in independent film. I was like, no thanks. Nope. Just I really like my kind of the one thing I loved about live was when it was done. Because I came from broadcast TV, remember, repeats and reversioning, like this stuff never ended. You were always like reversioning, sending something out. You were always in the edit for a long time. 8 out of 10 cats, you film it, rush the tapes to the to Soho, the house, production house, edit house. And then, you know, then everyone's in the edit suite overnight to get it out the next day. So yeah. Working in live, I was like, what? Are we finished? Like, what, like just the crew have to pack up and go away and that's it? Like, yes, this is amazing. I don't have to do any post-production paperwork. I don't have to speak to the channel. What are you talking about? So yeah, I just kind of so got to the point, I suppose, that it wasn't very fulfilling. It started to get to the point where it was like, well, what is it that I really want to say? There's definitely been a common thread throughout all my work that I've directed and even through what I've produced. But what is it that I really want to say? So I think a few years ago, I started working a lot more on that. So writing my own short films, which very much deal with the metaphysical side of world, the things that we can't see, how, you know, each other's energy affects us, how our lineage affects us. I'm really personally into really esoteric sciences. So I feel like that's all come out in my work in a kind of science fiction, futurism kind of way. And I think that's led on to also me consciously starting to look at the brands that I was working with. So a few years ago, I consciously started working with brands that aligned more with my values and my ethics and more that I wanted to say. So I've been, you know, spent a few years working on live shows with Lush Cosmetics and working with a doctor of a master of Oriental sciences. So he's a homeopath, acupuncturist, acupressure, qigong master, the whole lot. So I started working on a series of films with him a couple of years ago in New York on Black wellness. That I've been trying to get. He's a little bit older, so I've been trying to get him to get it out there. But I think I might need to call him and get those back out there, which I think is really timely with all that we're going through right now, to be able to look after ourselves and the highlights that we've seen in the disparities in healthcare, especially for Black people at this time. So yeah, it's taken a lot of twists and turns, but it's made me realize that all of that was for a reason. To get to this point, to be able to hone my voice a lot more and really decide what I wanted to leave in the world.
No, that's really good. I think it's always good hearing people's journey and to get to where they are now. And I think it's good for more people to hear that, because when you're in school or when you're in university or college and stuff like that, they're just like drumming down to you, like, you know, you need to make sure you know what you want to do. You've got to have a career path. You've got to know exactly what you want to do so that by the time you're 30, you should have everything ready to go. And it's like, nothing goes like that in life, and then you're going to continuously always find new ways to fulfill what you want to do within your passion and stuff like that. So it's good to hear so many different paths, like from everybody who I've spoken to. Like I spoke to somebody who just refused to write. She wouldn't write anything because she just thought, okay, I need to focus on mainstream production. She was working on Star Wars and stuff like that. As soon as she started to write properly, that's when her career started to take off, winning awards. Now she's got a commission from a network, and now she's working on her pilot, you know. So you've got to, it's, you kind of just got to go with the flow, I think, instead of like going by what everyone else tells you what to do. And I think you being in this industry for so long, you've been in this game for like what, over 20 years, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, well, TV, well, since BBC, it's like 15 years, but if you
Hmm.
go before that, yeah, with
So,
Taloa,
mhm,
as well, yeah, I did
mhm,
lots of like other stuff, so
mhm.
pretty much life.
And it's like,
Yeah.
as, and you touched on it a bit more about today's society. When you look at what has been going on in the last year or so, not just with the pandemic, but with like the Black Lives Matter movement, and all of a sudden these networks and production companies are really pushing for Black um voices behind the screen and in front of the screen. As a Black woman in this industry, what do you think of that? And what are some things you've had to overcome working in this industry?
Yeah, I think over my life span in this industry, um, I always believe in hope. I'm very much an optimist, but I'm sorry to say I've seen this all before, like a few times over. I've been in diversity drives. I've seen it happen, and I know for a fact that if companies wanted to change, they can. I think what makes this time different is all now have access to platforms where we can write, produce, direct, and upload our own work. Like we all have at least a mobile phone that can shoot,
Mhm,
you know. And so I just, for me, very much my focus is on how us as Black creatives can uplift each other, how we can work with each other and forward our voices. Because my experience is that is what mainstream latch onto. You know, you look at somebody like Michaela Cole who did Chewing Gum independently,
mhm,
you know, and then mainstream latched onto her, and then still didn't even want to give her or her awards, you know,
mhm,
a nomination even
mhm,
recently, for her brilliant series. Um, so I see a lot of it happening, but I also just feel a lot of the kind of having to negotiate your own humanity within
mhm,
those spaces is another kind of aspect of white supremacy. And we
mhm,
have to be so careful not to get tied up into those conversations that leave us quite drained, that leave us not less focused on our work,
mhm,
and leave us kind of begging for spaces where if they wanted to let us in, it's easy enough to do. And so for me, it's very much about us working together to see what we can do and, you know, understanding that there's a world outside of the West. You know, there's a whole continent of Africa that is producing great content. I'm sure would love content from the diaspora. Um, and there are ways that we can even uplift ourselves here within the UK. There's great people making content over here, like yourself, for example.
mhm,
So I see a lot of it and I hear a lot of it and I understand because I think I've been caught up in it in the past. But I'm in a very different space right now where my focus is on how we're going to collaborate together and how we're going to uplift ourselves out of this together using the resources that we have. I think in the UK, we all probably know somebody who has equipment. I certainly know somebody who has a studio, you know, and I think there's just ways that we can all work together. And there are ways to even profit off that and feel okay about that and not feel guilty about that. It's just about learning the business and understanding the business a bit more. And I would urge a lot of those people that are speaking to those companies that really do try and understand the business, because a lot of Black creatives get into work with big companies and broadcasters, but they don't understand that they've never sat in that production office every day.
Yeah.
I have. I know how they operate. It's very different walking in as a client that's working as a creative on your own series or one new series, but when you're in that office every day, it's a totally different experience. So understanding that you're not going to be privy to all the information. Quite frankly, if you don't see the budget, you're not privy to a lot of information.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know, so and I think a lot of the kind of newer creatives would I don't know if there's enough access to the people that have been in the industry for a long time that can kind of shed some light on that. But I guess maybe it would be a good way. I guess this podcast is a good way for that to be able to happen. Because I would hate to think about how many exasperated Black creatives there are out there trying to get into the mainstream. And like you said with your friend or the person you had on before the podcast, you know, once she went within and started working on her own things, that's when the mainstream came knocking.
Exactly. It's true. And I understand your concerns about what this whole diversity push within the media industry is, because I worked at a production company 5 years ago, and I remember it was my job to filter in all of the applications. So what I mean by that is, let's say if I sent my CV into a production company and it said that I'm Black, Asian, or gay or whatever, I had to put those in a whole different section, because the production company I was working at had failed their diversity quota. So they needed to hire any Black, Asian, gay person who was coming through. And it's like the fact that that was in 2016 and we were still doing that then, and now in 2021 we're still having that conversation. I mean, I wasn't surprised when I saw that come through on my desk that I needed to filter through applications, because I was the only person of color in the office. So what would you say is like the best piece of advice you've received whilst in your career working in this industry?
I guess the best piece of advice is to really learn your craft and learn your business. Once you've got those two things, nobody can really take it away from you. There's no denying if you probably have talent, but it's the honing of that talent. Start to understand how things are structured, whether it be in business or your narrative or your creative. Because that's what really keeps your fire burning as well. That's what keeps your passion alive. But also, once that passion comes alive, you don't just leave it in the hands of an accountant like I did, and came home to a £6,000 bill from HMRC. Ooh. That was no fun having to pay back. To the point when I called HMRC when I thought maybe this is not real, because it can't be. Even the woman at HMRC felt sorry for me. So it's I learned through mistakes, and it was really good advice that I was taught to kind of learn your craft and also create for yourself. I have to say, one of the most racist people I ever worked under actually did say to me, she said, if you really want to get anywhere, write your own series and then pitch it. That's the only way you're going to get anywhere. And she was doing it in a horrible way, but she was right in that sense of, I would say, do a lot more of your own work. And also, I think what got me far in my career as well is being open to saying yes to new experiences. Mm-hmm. You know, I could have just been like, oh, I don't do beauty events. They
Mhm,
actually came to me and they were like, I know you're not a production assistant, but would you
mhm.
do it? I was like, yeah. I mean, it's something you're paying me, right? Like it's not volunteer work.
Okay, exactly.
Yes. So I would say also, yeah, be open to different things, different experiences, because that being open has led me to LA, New York, Paris, Spain, working on Paris Fashion Week, but also filming Lenny Kravitz concert in Paris, just such great experiences that money can't buy. Money can't buy you being in a room with Naomi Campbell. It can't. Like
Exactly.
it's not the same. Like
exactly,
no
exactly.
Alan Weck hugging and kissing you or Beyonce blowing a kiss to you. I promise you, it's no money. No money.
Okay, flex on them, Marley. Let them know who you've worked with, okay?
No money can fill that. So, and that I got there through hard work, knowing my craft, being open, and being really focused because you're going to deal with the racism, the sexism, the classism. But I'm focused on what I'm there to do. I'm not only ever going into a job to make money, that money can come and go. I'm going in there to learn new skills. And that's why I'm choosing those specific roles. I want to learn new skills, add new skills to my arsenal, always be improving. So yeah, and enjoy it.
Yeah, I really like that. That's good advice. And especially the last bit, what you said at the end, like learning new skills. I think that's what people don't really look at. They just look at the end goal as to where they want to get to, and that's fine. But it is good of learning new skills. I'm so happy that I've done so many different things in my short career compared to yours. But like, I know that if times are hard and I can't get work, I know that I can apply for so many different type of jobs to make some money and get new opportunities and be able to do what I want to. At least it's something that I enjoy doing, you know? So that's a good thing about it as well. When you know different things across this industry, yeah, you always can get a job, especially when you're a hard worker and good at what you do. That's like a
And
bonus.
why we connected because I can definitely get that from you. Like, and it's so refreshing. I think you're right. Not enough people want to do that and don't enjoy the kind of process. You're right. They're just thinking about the end destination, but it really is the journey. If you feel like you know it all already, like just don't even bother. Just quit.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like those people who wouldn't want to be a runner on set. Oh no, I've been a runner before. But it's like sometimes you just need to be all hands on deck so that you can get the project or the product done to the best of its ability. It's not about, oh, you just let them do it, Every little helps, and that's where you really can get the best out of what you're doing. So it's also about being humble, I think, as well.
You can't be on my set with that attitude because I've been like the top person on my set on my hands and knees picking up rubbish and stuff.
Mhm,
You cannot be like that. And I think that's what I really enjoyed with working with the Americans. They're exactly the same. And
mhm.
that's what I love. I work with CS Global and Jonathan Reed is like one of Tom Ford's good friends. They know each other from Gucci. So that's how we ended up always doing a show and stuff. And what I love about him is he has this big, massive like company internationally, and yet he is working as hard and as long hours as everybody. Like he's not like swanning in, like having a look over and going back out. No, my guy is always there, and it's working around those kind of people is really because you can learn your craft and stuff, but people like to work with people they like to work with.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a lot of what this industry boils down to. And so if you're a team player and you're willing to learn and get all hands on deck, you're gonna get more jobs.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. So what's next? What can you share you're doing next besides Nimison and Newlyweds for the projects you're working with me? What else have you got going on?
Oh yes, so I've got talking about diversifying again. I was approached by a couple of developers, like tech developers,
Mhm.
to start working on the content for their new platform.
Oh.
So we're founding that. So we've been working on that pretty much since last May. So we're coming up to launching that. And like I said, I'm also really focused at the moment on Black wellness.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be some content around that. I don't know with this new lockdown if that's going to happen. I was supposed to be doing some more fashion stuff, but I think that might be on hold. I don't know how you could get so many people in a room anymore. And it's just not the same if it's like an empty room. I don't want no parts of it. So I am currently finalizing a script that I've been writing. So I'm really excited about that because about 2 years ago, I met a couple of producers in LA, and one of them is between London and LA, and they have been bothering me. Like they have been bothering me, so I'll be so excited to be able to get that over to them. It's a period drama. It's set in the Caribbean, pre any slavery or colonial days, so it doesn't even touch on that.
Thank you. I'm tired of the trauma. Thank you. Okay.
I don't engage in that.
Thank you. I need to cry when I'm watching a movie. Thanks.
Yes, yes. I'm really but that's a good point to speak about. I really am against it's the kind of glamour of the kind of trauma porn, as I've dubbed it. Like
it is trauma porn. It is.
And I used to have conversations with like working around so many white people. I used to have conversations. I remember being at ITM Productions because I was there for a couple of years, doing a lot of their producing and directing their branded content for certain clients. And I can't remember what film came out, maybe 12 Years a Slave or something like that. And everyone kept asking me if I'd watched it. And so I just kept on all giving them the same response, going, oh no, why would you want to watch black people be beaten? Is that what you like?
What's the truth?
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you guys? Don't you find that gross? And they'd be like they wouldn't even know what to say because they were coming over to me like, yeah, I'm going to have this great discussion with this black woman about 12 Years a Slave. And I'm like, no, still haven't seen it, have no interest. So yeah, this is more of a love story.
Oh, good.
Again,
is it kind of like Lovers Rock by Steve McQueen, kind of?
No, I do have another script that I think you might be talking about that is a bit
okay. Like that. Yeah, I love it. Loads of content coming. I love it.
Scripts that are kind of, but they're set in completely different periods.
Okay.
The kind of more dub Lovers Rock one is set more 90s, 80s, 90s to modern era, whereas this one is set around the Taino and Kalinago and African people that were indigenous on the Caribbean islands. So yeah.
It sounds busy. So where can people find you on like social media to check out your work and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I have a website, marleaedwards.com. So I have some of my work out there. I must confess, people must bear with me. I'm so old school in my industry that like for the longest time we didn't put any work out there. You also weren't allowed to. Even when social media came out, you couldn't even barely say that you were working on something. It was so I'm actually, my website's up and I have a Vimeo page with some of my past work, and yeah, you can check out my work there or my link tree.
Oh, Good. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Marley. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this conversation slash interview. I feel like it was really inspiring, and I hope you guys got some tips about just learning that you don't need to just go the conventional way in this industry. There's so many ways to work, enjoy what you do, and just do so many different things within this industry. So follow me on all socials at Kashif Boothe, the Kashif Boothe podcast, for more episodes. Thanks again for listening.